The courtroom is unusually tense this morning. Judge Frank Caprio sits behind the bench with his reading glasses perched on his nose, flipping through a stack of case files with the quiet efficiency of a man who's seen thousands of lives pass through these doors. The wooden benches are filled with defendants waiting their turn, some nervous, some resigned, all hoping for a little mercy from the judge known throughout Providence as the most compassionate man in the American court system. But today, something feels different. The clerk calls the next case. Docket number 4729. City of Providence vs. Melissa Kowalski. Parking violations, expired registration, failure to appear. A young woman in her late 20s approaches the defendant's table. She's thin, almost frail-looking, wearing an oversized sweater that seems to swallow her small frame. Her brown hair is pulled back in a messy ponytail, and there are dark circles under her eyes that speak of sleepless nights. She carries a worn canvas bag over her shoulder and keeps her gaze fixed firmly on the floor as she takes her place at the podium. Judge Caprio looks up from the file, his expression softening immediately as it always does when he senses vulnerability. But before he can speak, before he can offer his usual warm greeting, a voice cuts through the silence like a knife. "Your Honor, if I may." Everyone turns. A woman in an expensive navy suit strides forward from the back of the courtroom, her heels clicking sharply against the tile floor. She's carrying a leather briefcase, and there's an air of aggressive confidence about her that immediately changes the atmosphere in the room. She doesn't wait for permission before speaking again. Attorney Jennifer Blackwell representing the parking authority. Your Honor, I need to make it absolutely clear that my client has zero tolerance for this kind of flagrant disregard for the law. Ms. Kowalski has accumulated over $3,000 in fines, has ignored multiple notices, and failed to appear at 2 previous hearings. We're requesting the maximum penalty, immediate payment, and if she cannot pay, we want a bench warrant issued today. Judge Caprio removes his glasses slowly, setting them down on the bench. His expression hasn't changed, but those who know him well recognize the slight tightening around his eyes. He's surprised. Attorney Blackwell didn't announce herself when she entered, didn't ask permission to approach, and is now dictating terms before the defendant has even spoken a single word. "Counselor," Judge Caprio says, his voice as calm as still water, "I appreciate your position, but in my courtroom, we start by hearing from the defendant. That's how we've always done things here." Attorney Blackwell doesn't miss a beat. She sets her briefcase down with a thud that echoes through the silent room. "With all due respect, Your Honor, I've reviewed your record on these cases. You have a pattern of dismissing fines, reducing penalties, and essentially encouraging people to ignore parking regulations. The city is losing hundreds of thousands of dollars because defendants know they can come in here, tell a sob story, and walk away scot-free. That's not justice. That's enabling." The courtroom goes completely silent. Even the court officers exchange glances. No one speaks to Judge Caprio this way. Not because he demands deference through intimidation, but because he earns respect through decades of fairness and genuine compassion. What Attorney Blackwell just said isn't merely disrespectful, it's a fundamental misunderstanding of everything this courtroom represents. Judge Caprio leans back in his chair, folding his hands in front of him. His voice remains steady, but there's a new edge to it now, barely perceptible but definitely there. "Counselor Blackwell, I've been on this bench for more than 40 years. I've presided over tens of thousands of cases. And in all that time, I've never once needed an attorney to explain to me what justice is." He pauses, letting the words settle in the air like dust motes in sunlight. "Now, unless you have a legal objection grounded in statute or procedure, I'm going to do what I always do. I'm going to talk to Miss Kowalski. I'm going to hear her story. And then I'm going to make a decision based on the facts, the law, and yes, on compassion. Because compassion and justice are not opposites. They're partners." Attorney Blackwell opens her mouth to respond, but Judge Caprio raises his hand gently. "You'll have your opportunity to speak, counselor. But right now, I want to hear from the defendant." He turns his attention to Melissa Kowalski, and his entire demeanor shifts. The sternness melts away, replaced by the warm, grandfatherly presence that has made him beloved by millions. He leans forward slightly, his voice dropping to that characteristic gentle tone that makes people feel safe enough to tell the truth. "Miss Kowalski, good morning. I'm Judge Caprio. I see you're here for some parking tickets and a registration issue. But before we get into all that, I want to ask you something. Are you okay?" Melissa Kowalski looks up for the first time, and the expression on her face is one of complete surprise. It's clear she wasn't expecting kindness. Her eyes, red-rimmed and exhausted, begin to well up immediately, and she quickly wipes at them with the back of her hand. I'm sorry, Your Honor. I didn't mean to." No, Judge Caprio says softly, waving away the apology. "You don't need to apologize to me. I'm asking because I can see you're having a difficult time. And I need to understand what's going on in your life before I can make a fair decision about these tickets. So talk to me. What's happening?" Melissa takes a shaky breath. Behind her, Attorney Blackwell shifts impatiently, but Judge Caprio ignores her completely. His entire focus is on the young woman struggling to compose herself. I work as a home health aide, Your Honor. I take care of elderly patients, mostly people who can't leave their homes anymore. The pay isn't great, but I love the work. I love helping people." Judge Caprio nods encouragingly. "That's beautiful work. Very important work. So you're driving around the city going from patient to patient?" "Yes, sir. I usually have 5 or 6 clients a day. Sometimes more. And the parking in Providence is..." She trails off, seeming reluctant to complain. "It's terrible," Judge Caprio finishes for her with a slight smile. "You don't have to tell me. I live here too. So you're getting tickets while you're inside caring for your patients?" "Yes, Your Honor. Most of my clients live in areas where there's no parking, or only meter parking, and sometimes the visits take longer than I expect because they need more help than the schedule allows. Mrs. Chen, one of my clients, she's 93 and she lives alone. When I'm supposed to leave after an hour, sometimes I stay 2 or 3 because she needs someone to talk to. She has nobody else." There's something achingly genuine in the way Melissa speaks. This isn't someone making excuses. This is someone caught between doing the right thing and following regulations that weren't designed with her reality in mind. Judge Caprio leans forward, his elbows on the bench. "So you're staying late with your patients, making sure they're okay, and when you come back to your car, there's a ticket." "Yes, sir. And I know I should have paid them right away, but..." "But what?" Judge Caprio's voice is so gentle it's almost a whisper. "What happened?" Melissa's composure finally cracks. Tears stream down her face, and she doesn't bother wiping them away this time. "My daughter got sick. She's 7 years old, and 6 months ago she was diagnosed with leukemia. We've been going to Hasbro Children's Hospital 3 times a week for treatments, and I couldn't keep up with everything. The medical bills, the time off work, the parking tickets, everything just piled up and I didn't know what to do. The courtroom is so quiet you could hear a pin drop." Judge Caprio's expression has transformed into one of deep concern, his eyebrows furrowed, his mouth set in a tight line. This is the moment that happens in his courtroom over and over again, the moment when the abstract becomes heartbreakingly real. "Your little girl has cancer," he says quietly, and it's not a question. It's an acknowledgement of pain so profound that it demands to be witnessed. "Yes, Your Honor. Her name is Sophie. She's in remission now, thank God, but the treatment was... It was everything. It took everything we had." Judge Caprio removes his glasses and rubs his eyes. Those who watch him regularly know this gesture. It's what he does when he's emotionally affected, when the weight of someone's suffering hits him personally. He takes a moment to collect himself before speaking again. Where's Sophie's father? Is he helping? Melissa shakes her head. He left 2 years ago. It's just been me and Sophie since she was 5. So you're raising a child with cancer by yourself, working as a home health aide, taking care of other people all day, and then coming home to take care of your sick daughter at night. I do my best, Your Honor. Attorney Blackwell clears her throat loudly, but Judge Caprio holds up one finger without even looking at her. Not now. Not yet. He's not finished. Miss Kowalski, I need you to help me understand something. You said you have over $3,000 in fines. That's a lot of parking tickets. How many are we talking about? The clerk flips through the file and speaks up. 27 separate violations over the past 14 months, Your Honor. Expired meter, parking in restricted zones, expired registration. Judge Caprio turns back to Melissa. 27 tickets. That means you were getting tickets regularly and you just kept parking in the same places. I didn't have a choice, Your Honor. I have to park somewhere when I'm working. And I couldn't afford to fix my registration because the insurance lapsed when I couldn't make the payment. Everything happened at once and I just fell behind on everything. I'm not making excuses. I know I broke the rules. But I didn't know what else to do. Judge Caprio sits back in his chair, his fingers steepled under his chin, processing everything he's heard. This is his signature move, the contemplative pause that lets everyone know he's really thinking about the situation, not just mechanically applying rules. Behind him, the Providence City seal hangs on the wall, a reminder of the laws he's sworn to uphold. But Frank Caprio has always believed that upholding the law means understanding its purpose to serve justice, not to crush people who are already down. Miss Kowalski, he says finally, I want to make sure I have this right. You're a single mother working as a home health aide. You're taking care of elderly patients who depend on you. You have a 7-year-old daughter who just went through cancer treatment. And during all of this, you accumulated parking tickets because you were doing your job and taking care of people. Yes, Your Honor. And you missed the court dates because Sophie had chemotherapy scheduled those days. I called the court and tried to explain, but I was told I still had to appear or pay online, and I couldn't do both. I couldn't be in 2 places at once. Judge Caprio shakes his head slowly, and there's something almost weary in the gesture, as if he's seen this same impossible situation play out too many times. People forced to choose between their children and their obligations, between their jobs and their responsibilities, between survival and compliance. Let me ask you something else. How much do you make as a home health aide? About $22,000 a year, Your Honor. Before taxes. The number hangs in the air like an indictment. $22,000 a year. In a city where rent alone can eat up more than half of that. With a child who has cancer. Judge Caprio does some quick mental math. So you're bringing home maybe $1,800 a month after taxes. And these fines total over $3,000. That's almost 2 months of your entire income. Yes, sir. Attorney Blackwell finally speaks up again, her voice sharp with impatience. Your Honor, I really must object to this line of questioning. The defendant's financial situation is not relevant to whether she violated parking regulations. The law is clear. She parked illegally, she ignored the tickets, she failed to appear. Those are facts. Her personal circumstances don't change the facts. Judge Caprio turns to look at her, and for the first time, there's real steel in his eyes. Counselor, I'm going to say this once. In my courtroom, a person's circumstances are always relevant. Always. Because justice without context is just tyranny dressed up in legal language. Attorney Blackwell's face flushes red. Your Honor, I'm not finished. Judge Caprio's voice remains calm, but it carries an authority that's impossible to ignore. You came into my courtroom today and you told me I enable lawbreakers. You suggested that showing compassion is the same as abandoning justice. But I want you to look at Miss Kowalski and tell me what justice looks like here. He gestures toward Melissa, who's still standing at the podium, tears streaming down her face, clutching her canvas bag like it's the only thing keeping her anchored to the ground. This woman works every day taking care of people who need help. She stayed by her daughter's side during cancer treatment. She's never been arrested, never been in trouble, never done anything except try to survive and care for other people. And now you want me to issue a bench warrant and demand $3,000 she doesn't have? For parking tickets she got while she was working? That's your version of justice? Attorney Blackwell straightens her shoulders. The city has rules, Your Honor. If we don't enforce them, the system falls apart. Everyone would have an excuse. An excuse? Judge Caprio repeats the word slowly, as if tasting it. A child with cancer is an excuse? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean, counselor? Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you're saying that the parking authority's revenue is more important than this woman's life. That $3,300 in fines is worth destroying someone who's already hanging by a thread. The courtroom is electric now. People in the gallery are leaning forward, completely absorbed. The court officers are watching intently. Even the clerk has stopped typing to listen. This is not the gentle, grandfatherly Frank Caprio that most people see. This is the other side of his compassion, the fierce protector of the vulnerable, the man who will not allow cruelty to masquerade as law and order. Attorney Blackwell sets her jaw. I'm simply doing my job, Your Honor. The parking authority has a responsibility to the city. And I have a responsibility to justice, Judge Caprio responds. Real justice. Not the kind that fits neatly into spreadsheets and budget reports. He turns back to Melissa. Miss Kowalski, I need to ask you about your daughter. How is she doing now? You said she's in remission. Melissa nods, wiping her eyes. Yes, Your Honor. She finished her last treatment 3 weeks ago. The doctors say the cancer is gone. We have to keep monitoring, but they're optimistic. Thank God, Judge Caprio says, and there's genuine relief in his voice. And how is she doing emotionally? How is she handling everything? She's amazing, Your Honor. She's so strong. Stronger than me. She went back to school last month, and she's so happy to be with her friends again. She lost all her hair during the chemo, but it's growing back now. She tells everyone she's a superhero because superheroes don't need hair. Judge Caprio smiles, but his eyes are glistening. She sounds like a remarkable little girl. And she has a remarkable mother. Judge Caprio takes a deep breath and picks up Melissa's file again, flipping through the pages with deliberate care. The courtroom waits in suspended anticipation. Everyone can feel that something significant is about to happen, but no one knows exactly what. Attorney Blackwell stands with her arms crossed, her expression a mixture of frustration and defiance. Melissa stands trembling at the podium, clearly terrified of what's coming next. Miss Kowalski, Judge Caprio says, looking up from the file, I want you to understand something. These tickets you received, they're legitimate. You parked illegally. You let your registration expire. According to the letter of the law, you violated the regulations and penalties are warranted. Melissa's face falls. She nods slowly, resigned to her fate. However, Judge Caprio continues, and that single word changes everything. However, the law is not just a set of rules designed to punish people. The law exists to serve the community, to create order and fairness, and sometimes to show mercy when mercy is what justice truly requires. He sets the file down and leans forward, speaking directly to Melissa with the kind of intensity that makes it feel like they're the only two people in the room. I want to tell you what I see when I look at this case. I see a woman who wakes up every morning and goes to work taking care of elderly people who would be lost without her. I see a mother who sat by her daughter's hospital bed during chemotherapy treatments. I see someone who didn't run away when things got hard, who didn't give up, who kept showing up for work and for her child even when the world was falling apart around her. I see a hero, Miss Kowalski. That's what I see. Melissa puts her hand over her mouth, sobbing now, completely overwhelmed. Judge Caprio's voice grows even softer. And I'll tell you something else. When my father came to this country from Italy, he had nothing. He worked as a laborer, broke his back doing jobs nobody else wanted to do, and he raised 5 children on almost nothing. There were times when he couldn't pay his bills. Times when we didn't know how we'd eat. And the only reason our family made it was because people showed us kindness when we needed it most. People who saw past the rules and regulations and recognized our humanity. He pauses, collecting himself, the emotion clear in his voice. So I remember where I come from. I remember what it's like to struggle. And I will not turn my back on someone who needs help, especially someone like you who has given so much to others. Attorney Blackwell interrupts sharply. Your Honor, I have to formally object. You're allowing your personal feelings to override your judicial responsibilities. This is exactly the kind of. Judge Caprio's hand comes down on the bench with a sudden crack that makes everyone jump. It's not violent, but it's decisive, the action of a man who has reached the absolute limit of his patience. Counselor Blackwell, I have listened to you. I have been respectful. But now I'm going to say something, and I want you to listen very carefully. You walked into this courtroom today with contempt. Contempt for me, contempt for this process, and worst of all, contempt for Miss Kowalski. You called her story a sob story. You suggested that compassion is a weakness. You demanded that I treat her like a criminal who deserves the harshest possible punishment. His voice rises slightly, not to a shout, but to the volume of absolute moral clarity. But here's what you don't understand. This courtroom is not just about parking tickets and fines. It's about people. Real people with real lives and real struggles. And if you can look at Miss Kowalski, a woman who has endured more in the past 6 months than most people endure in a lifetime, and all you can see is someone trying to cheat the system, then you are in the wrong profession. The courtroom erupts in spontaneous applause. The gallery, which has been silent until now, breaks into genuine appreciation for what they're witnessing. Attorney Blackwell's face goes from red to white, her composure finally cracking. Judge Caprio holds up his hand for silence, and the room immediately quiets again. Now, counselor, you demanded the maximum penalty. You wanted immediate payment and a bench warrant. Well, I'm going to give you a response to that demand. He turns to Melissa. Miss Kowalski, I'm dismissing all 27 parking tickets. Every single one. You don't owe the city anything. Melissa's knees actually buckle slightly, and she grabs the podium for support. Your Honor, I don't understand. I'm dismissing them because they were issued under circumstances that were beyond your control. You were working. You were caring for your child. And you did try to address them but were prevented by circumstances that no one should have to face. He's not finished. Furthermore, I'm going to personally contact the Rhode Island DMV and advocate for your registration issue to be resolved without additional penalties. You need your car for work, and I'm not going to let bureaucracy prevent you from earning a living. Melissa is openly weeping now, unable to form words. Judge Caprio waits patiently, letting her process what just happened. Around the courtroom, people are wiping their own eyes. Even the bailiff, a man who's seen thousands of hearings, is visibly moved. But Judge Caprio isn't finished yet. He turns his attention back to Attorney Blackwell, and his expression is no longer angry. It's sad. Disappointed. Like a teacher who expected better from a student. Counselor Blackwell, I told you I would give you the harshest sentence. And here it is. Attorney Blackwell straightens, perhaps expecting to be held in contempt or formally reprimanded. I sentence you to go out into this city and find 5 people. 5 people who are struggling, who are behind on something, who are overwhelmed by life. I want you to sit with them. Not as an attorney looking for billable hours or enforcement actions. Just as a human being. Listen to their stories. Really listen. And then ask yourself what justice looks like for them. He leans back in his chair, and when he speaks again, his voice carries the weight of 4 decades on the bench. Because the harshest sentence I can give you is to make you see what you've been refusing to see. That every case that walks through that door is a human life. Every fine is attached to a person with a story, with struggles, with dignity that deserves to be recognized. You came in here today with legal precedents and budget concerns and enforcement statistics. But you forgot the most important thing. You forgot to care. Attorney Blackwell stands frozen, and for the first time since she entered the courtroom, she looks uncertain. Small. The armor of professional detachment has been stripped away, and what's left is a woman being confronted with a fundamental truth about what justice really means. Judge Caprio's voice softens one final time. I'm not saying the law doesn't matter. It does. Rules exist for good reasons. But rules without compassion become tools of oppression. And I will never, in all my years on this bench, allow my courtroom to become a place where people are punished for being human. He turns back to Melissa. Miss Kowalski, before you go, I want to give you something. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out his wallet. From it, he takes several bills and extends them toward her. It's a gesture he's made countless times before, this man who regularly pays people's fines out of his own pocket, who brings defendants food, who has been known to help people find jobs and housing. Your Honor, I can't. Melissa starts to protest. Yes, you can. This is for Sophie. Take her out for ice cream. Take her to the movies. Do something fun with her. She's been through hell, and so have you. You both deserve a little happiness. Melissa steps forward with trembling hands and accepts the money. Then, without thinking, without any regard for courtroom protocol, she moves around the podium and reaches toward Judge Caprio. He stands, and they embrace across the bench, this elderly judge and this young mother, 2 people who moments ago were strangers but who are now connected by a moment of pure human kindness. When they separate, Judge Caprio is wiping his eyes behind his glasses. You go home to that beautiful little girl, he says. You hug her tight. And you tell her that Judge Caprio says she's a superhero, and superheroes always win. Thank you, Melissa whispers. Thank you so much. No, Judge Caprio says firmly. Thank you. Thank you for the work you do. Thank you for being a good mother. Thank you for reminding me why I do this job. As Melissa leaves the courtroom, supported by a court officer who guides her gently toward the door, the gallery erupts in applause again. This time Judge Caprio doesn't stop them. He lets them express what everyone is feeling: awe, gratitude, hope, and the recognition that they've witnessed something extraordinary. Attorney Blackwell gathers her briefcase in silence and moves toward the exit. But before she can leave, Judge Caprio calls out to her. Counselor. She stops and turns back. I meant what I said. Find those 5 people. Listen to them. Because if you learn nothing else from today, learn this: being right about the law and being right about justice are not always the same thing. And in this courtroom, justice always comes first. She nods once, curtly, and leaves. Whether his words will change her or not, only time will tell. But for Judge Frank Caprio, the effort had to be made. Every person deserves the chance to see more clearly, to do better, to choose compassion over convenience. As the next case is called and a new defendant approaches the bench, Judge Caprio takes a moment to compose himself. He puts his glasses back on, picks up the next file, and prepares to listen to another story, another life, another opportunity to do what he's done for 40 years: see people, really see them, and deliver justice tempered with mercy. Because in the end, that's what makes Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom different from every other municipal court in America. Here, in this modest room in Providence, Rhode Island, the law serves humanity, not the other way around. Here, parking tickets and violations and regulations are understood as what they really are: pieces of paper that mean nothing compared to the value of human dignity. Here, everyone who walks through the door is treated not as a case number or a source of revenue, but as a person worthy of respect, understanding, and when circumstances demand it, extraordinary grace. The morning continues. More cases are heard. More stories unfold. And Judge Frank Caprio listens to every single one with the same patience, the same compassion, the same fundamental belief that everyone deserves their day in court, and that court should be a place where justice and mercy walk hand in hand. That's the lesson Melissa Kowalski learned today. That's the lesson Attorney Blackwell was given, whether she accepts it or not. And that's the lesson that echoes through every hearing in this remarkable courtroom: that the harshest sentence anyone can receive is not jail time or fines, but the revelation of their own capacity for compassion, and the challenge to do better, to see more clearly, to remember that on the other side of every rule and regulation is a human heart that beats with the same hopes and fears as our own.